So a little over a year ago, I was able to buy the AVA, or Advanced Versatile Aviation, from Thrustmaster. I have a video of it in the description below. I have more information on that in that video. I will quickly go over the AVA, but I will mostly be going over the products that Thrustmaster actually sent me, and we'll be doing a review on all of them. So this right here is an extension. It is a straight extension for the AVA, and it is for the center mounted sticks. As you can see here, it is a 12 centimeter 4.7 inch metal AVA extension with adjustable grip orientation from 0 to 30 degrees. As you can see here, you could do it from 0 to 30, so you can do everywhere in between. It is a ability on here to loosen this bolt here, and you could slide it back and forth, and it'll move the orientation left or right to 0 or 30. So this right here is a 24 centimeter or 9.4 inch metal AVA extension. So it's a curved, which simulates what helicopters usually look like, but it could also be used for F-15 or F-18 Hornets as well. So that is the extension for that. The AVA extension curved, so that's what it is. On here it is 24 centimeters, 9.4 metal AVA extension. This has a 30 grip orientation for the stick grip. It does not have the option to variable between the 0 and 30 like the straight one does, but the 30 degree grip is pretty good when it's a center mounted stick. I would like for it to have a variation between 0 and 30, but I'll go over that later on when I talk about it more. But out the box, it works on the AVA, and if you want it to work on your Warthog base, you would have to get a Warthog converter so your AVA can work on the Warthog as well. They also sent me some dampeners. I talked about this during the Expo of last year, 2024. I was not able to go this year, but I was sad that I wasn't able to, but I still had some fun doing other things that I had planned. These are two upgraded dampeners for the AVA base, which are much better than the stock ones that come with the AVA. Later on, I'll show you exactly what this looks like and the differences between the two dampeners. With the AVA base, it came with soft, medium, and hard. So I have soft and medium. I have the black ones that are hard, but what came with the extensions was I guess it's a step up from hard, and it's the gold ones. I have it installed already, and I'm using that with all of these extensions. I've even used it with just the stick by itself, because you can always adjust the tension without having to take off the cover, and you can just adjust the tension just by doing that, and it works as well without having to take off different springs and stuff. I also received some pitch cams. So you got a D pitch cam, and then the FBW, which is fly-by-wire. It came with those. So I have tried the fly-by-wire. I did not necessarily like it. I went back to the jet ones that came with the AVA base to begin with. So I went back to the jet ones. The reason why I didn't like the fly-by-wire is that it has a center detent, a little bit more noticeable center detent than the jet cams. So I replaced it with, or I put back the jet cams because I didn't like that center detent that the fly-by-wire cams have. However, using these cams with the extensions, you don't necessarily notice the center detent as much. So if you're using the extensions, you don't notice that center detent as much as you would just using it with the stick alone.
I'm in Falcon BMS 4.38 testing out the AVA extensions. Got the curved and the straight extension. They're both on there. It is high enough for my office chair. Depending on how high you have your chair, depends on your comfort level. But now I have it just default, and I didn't have to adjust my chair. It seems to work just fine without any adjustments of my chair. So the extensions and the stick, it's about 25 inches tall. My desk is about 27.5 inches tall underneath, so there's plenty of space, about an inch or so underneath my desk to have the stick, and it works out just fine. Right now I'm using the jet cams inside of the AVA base. They don't have any noticeable mid detent, especially that I have a extension on the stick here, but even without the extensions it does not have a noticeable detent, and that's what I'm using right now. Also, I'm using the the very hard golden springs, and it seems to be very good. And I've also increased the tension on the base to make sure that it's tensioned because I have this extension here. So I'm going to take off now, and I'll just kind of explain a little bit of stuff, more stuff, what it's about.
Altitude.
So the curves need some adjusting. Right now the curves are not to my liking. I would like to have the ability to decrease or saturate the outer portions. I don't really need the last 10% of movement. Other than that, it feels nice as a center stick. It doesn't move without any sort of stability on the ground. All I have is the plate that it comes with. I have the original one from the Warthog, but the AVA one will suffice just as well. But without any crazy movements, it seems to be good enough for just the base here, the plate. I did do a dogfight, and I didn't have any issues on there, but that's when I really noticed the last 10% of movement in the stick. I can't really reach without hitting either my leg or my chair. I'm in DCS, testing out the AVA extensions. It is definitely something to get used to. I'm still working on the axis curves, on the stick here, because they're totally not used to this, and it's totally foreign to me. But it does get the point across when it comes to a centerline stick, but definitely something to get used to. But when it comes to setup controls, if you have your stick already set up, your base already set up, then there's no need to do any more controls because it's just an extension. It automatically knows what it was before, and that's kind of it. The curves, I'm able to take off the last 10% or whatever I want, because in BMS I'm not able to do that as accurately, so that's an issue for me when it comes to controllability. But in DCS I'm able to accurately adjust those settings, which it makes it really nice to be able to tune it into what I want. So next, going to be talking about the dampeners. I installed one of the new dampeners in one of the axes. Can you guess which axis it is? I will try both.
So right here is one of the dampeners that can be upgraded. This black one is the original dampener that came with the AVA base. I'm going to change it with the silver ones that have a little bit more dampening power, and they're a lot better than the original ones. So this is the new dampener. So I'm going to install this with the one screw it comes with and the other one that you use from the old dampener when you remove it. So before you install this, make sure you position this dampener bar in the same position as the bar on, or the fitting inside of your base. If it's not aligned, then of course it's not going to work. So make sure it's up and down, just like in your base. When I got it, it was sideways, so just make sure you rotate it enough to be able to put it in there. With this first screw that's on there, it is a T6 fitting, but I'm going to first place it in there and set it, and then I'm going to install this screw, or at least get it started. This is underneath, so it'll be a little bit more difficult. And just like that, it's installed.
Alright, welcome to the end of the video. I'm going to talk about the pros, the cons, and some of my recommendations for the AVA curved extension and the short extension. So one, does it do what it's supposed to do? Yes, it does extend and allow you to put your base on the floor and give you a centerline stick position for F-15s and FA-18s, anything else that has a centerline stick. For a vast majority of users who are probably in their office or their room using a desk and an office chair, this has the height required to be able to use it without any other type of modification to make it higher. The curved is supposed to have the straight extension on the bottom, so it can be tall enough in an office chair. I am not quite sure what the straight extension is for alone, but it might work for some other chairs that are closer to the ground. Talking about the straight extension, it does have the ability to orient the grip 0 to 30 degrees, which is why I think it has its own use somewhere, but I'm not quite sure what that is. because being that the curved extension already has a orient of 30 degrees, there's no reason to orient it on the straight extension. But like I said, the straight extension might be used for a lower chair, like a bucket seat or a cockpit that people have at their houses. So with moving back and forth between a side stick and a centerline stick, I'm not quite a fan of constantly removing the stick and extensions between the aircraft because it creates unnecessary wear between your connectors. I would much rather swap out an entire stick setup than to have to swap out different parts in the stick setup. And as for the AVA as a whole, I'm not quite fond of having the different cams inside of the base, where you have to change it if you want to change aircraft. That is something that I am not a fan of. I would much rather it just be something you change in the curves, but having to physically change out hardware inside of the base is something I wouldn't necessarily want. So a con that I have with the curved extension is that the lack of ability to be able to orient the grip from 0 to 30 degrees. It is an option on the straight, but not the curved. You only have the option as 30 degrees. I would rather have the ability to do it and not need it than want the ability to do it and not have it. So moving on to some of the pros. So the extension definitely serves the purpose of a centerline stick, as long as the curved extension is paired with the straight extension for you to be able to use it in a normal environment, which is in an office chair at your desk. If you need to make smaller adjustments, just adjust your seat and on your chair. The quality of the extensions are up to par with Thrustmaster. They're metal with metal rings, so they won't wear and bend. So that's definitely a good thing for Thrustmaster and these extensions. A pro would also be that they are easy to install and remove just from that ring. That ring you have to screw in, and that's pretty good there. So this is just my opinion on the AVA base, the curved extension, the straight extension, some of the springs, and some of the cams. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.